welcome back. It is our first, for those of you that just popped in, it is our first Tech Talk Tuesday of 2025. We took January off because somebody told me that semesters were starting, and we decided that that's a bad time to have a Tech Talk. So we learned things from last year. So it's great to have you all here. Pop in chat and say hi, get those fingers ready. We are going to be interactive today, so make sure that you have your favorite AI tool up and ready to go. Because today is all about empowering faculty. We're going to have AI in action, which means you get to participate. We are going to craft learning outcomes and assessments using AI today. As always, Jamie, if you'll flip the slide, we have our housekeeping tips at the beginning of every session. We have our reminders. So first of all, this session is recorded. We will make it available on our resource site, so you will get to go back to it. We do not recommend the use of any third-party AI tools such as Otter AI, Read AI, any of those tools. If you do try to bring them in, we are going to deny those access. And the reason we do that is because there's a lot of elements of those tools, especially in the use, the terms of use, and some of the privacy things that we just don't, we can't know all of the things. And so because it's been recommended to us, we're also recommending it to you. We do have Copilot, which is part of the Microsoft 365, which we do use for some notes sometimes. So that is in there, but we do not recommend the use of third-party AI tools for note-taking. Remember that privacy is paramount, and you're going to hear us say this every single time. You've heard me say it for months, but I'm going to remind you again. When we're using these tools, do not ever include your PII, your personal identifiable information. Do not put it in an AI tool. I don't care if we're doing something today, if you're playing with it in a week or 3 weeks, don't put your personal identifiable information into those AI tools. And if you are putting any student work in AI for any reason, you also need to make sure you remove the PII before cutting and pasting any student work. Do not put any PII, whether it's yours, your students, anyone else's, into those tools. So those are always our housekeeping reminders. So what are we going to do today? So today, in this session, we collectively, all of us, are going to identify, we have a durable skill, and together we're going to use AI to draft learning outcomes. So we're going to draft the competency statements, and we are also going to build the assessment strategy for those competency statements, and we are going to do it in an hour. So here's the question that we are going to keep in mind today. This is what we're testing live and in person with all of you. You get to be part of this project with us. Is there a way that AI can help me do this faster? And that's interesting because Jamie shared with us this morning, there is an article that was out in MSN that that was the question that students should be asking as they're working, as they're moving into the workplace, is can AI help me do that faster? So we're going to ask ourselves today, can AI help us do that faster? So let's dig in. Again, make sure you have access to one of your favorite AI tools because we are going to be interactive today. And I am turning this over to Pari.
Thanks, Sarah. Super excited. So as Sarah said, basically the whole agenda is the session is interactive, and we are going to use backward design. A lot of you said you're instructional designers, so this is right up your alley. You know exactly what we're talking about. And we're using backward design and AI to collaboratively design a durable skill assessment and competency statement, which will be aligned to the real world. And there'll be a little bit of a teaser about how to incorporate OER resources in order to then achieve all those things, right? So as you can see, our goal is to develop competency statements, to develop a summative assessment, including a rubric, and then to sort of start defining the learning journey in order to tie all those together to then achieve, what you need to achieve or what the student needs to achieve, basically. So moving forward, just a little bit about backward design. Basically, the concept is you start not from the top down, but from the bottoms up. And so what we are trying to do is first figuring out what are the competencies that we want the student to achieve? And so what are the learning outcomes that the student need to be achieving? What are they going to be able to do? So we identify that first, and then we zoom all the way out and we say, how do we measure that they are actually able to do that? And so we determine what the assessments are on the basis of which we will certify that the student is able to do what we said them to do, what we told them to do, what they said they can do. So, what are they going to achieve? How are we going to assess that they are achieving that? And then we come back to the middle and we say, okay, now that we have determined what they're going to achieve and how we're going to measure that, then we say, how are we going to help them achieve that? What are our instructional methods, activities, teaching tools, resources, anything that will make this learning journey easier for them and take them on this journey towards that outcome or the goal or the competency that they need to achieve. And so the key guiding question here is, what do the students need to know and be able to do in the given context to be able to achieve that competency? So that's basically backward design 101 in like less than 30 seconds. So with that in mind, I'll hand it over to Jamie.
Thank you, Pari. So kind of tagging on to what Pari was saying about backward design, in the years that I spent in the classroom, the way that I went about developing what students were going to do for that semester, it sounded like this and looked like this. I would search around and find a textbook that I really liked. And I said, okay, this one's got really interesting projects in it. So we're going to follow this. It's got the content that I want to follow. So I would get the textbook. I would generate my syllabus, and I would then build the assessments, and I would start down that path. Now, what inevitably happened to me is that something interesting would pass in front along the way. So we might go down that path. And then another interesting thing, a month later, we'd go down a different path. So I was following a navigation, but it was being driven more so by the textbook I was using. Backward design is totally flipping that process on its head. It is zooming out and thinking about what is it that students need to know and be able to do. And as Pari said, then we figure out, how do we know that students know how to do the thing they need to know how to do? What does it look like when I'm seeing them demonstrate it? And in the third piece was what I used to do first, which was planning those the materials and activities that students do. So it's really kind of, when I first learned about backward design, I was just like, oh my goodness, that is just the total opposite of what I was doing before. And it really simplified the process. So if you're not familiar with backward design, I would hope that you would spend some time to learn about it. It just really kind of distills things down and makes them very clear in the classroom of the process that you can follow. So as Sarah and Pari said, that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to figure out how can AI assist in this collaborative process to help you achieve these things more quickly. Think about, prior to AI, how long it would take you to develop a module, how long it would take you to generate the ideas about what it is that you want to do, what do students need to do in the activities, how are you going to assess those activities? It took a huge amount of time. So what we want to demonstrate here today is quickly how you can do this using AI to generate your rough draft that then you can noodle on and massage and make it what you want it to be ultimately. But the center part is, can AI expedite this process for us? So we're going to give this a go. So we've been given the assignment of developing a competency statement. Some of you develop learning outcomes, learning objectives, all these different kinds of things for your class. Can AI assist you in that process and make it faster or more efficient than it was prior to AI? So when we look at a competency statement, we want to know what students, we want to land at what students need to know and be able to do. So a competency statement is a clear and concise description of the knowledge, skills, abilities, KSAs, required to perform a specific task or role effectively. It typically includes an observable and measurable action that demonstrate proficiency. And competency statements are aligned with real-world skills. And so what we want to do is when we fashion these statements out, we want to make sure that we can close our eyes and see students demonstrating proficiency. So a sample competency statement would be, demonstrate proper safety procedures when handling and disposing of hazardous chemicals in a laboratory setting. So that is a competency statement that we can assess students on to see if they are actually achieving proficiency in demonstrating proper safety procedures. Now, notice that competency statement begins with an observable, measurable, actionable verb. So again, I can watch a student demonstrate. We're going to talk about this a little later on because lots of times learning objectives are not written with verbs that are observable and measurable. So that's really key to remember that as we're going forward. So we're going to use ChatGPT to help us generate a competency statement. So at the bottom, I have put in here a sample prompt for a competency statement. So Sarah mentioned durable skills. So let's take 1 second and touch on those really quickly. So durable skills are the skills that endure over time, regardless of career that you're in. So it could be critical thinking, communication, collaboration, active listening, all of those types of skills that we think of that are durable over time and across discipline. So we're focusing on a communication competency statement. And we landed on that of going through this with you guys because it doesn't matter what discipline you're in, right? These types of durable skills are ever present in your classroom regardless of your discipline. So we all teach communication. We all assess communication. Students are performing communication, written and verbal, in our classes. And so we're going to work on crafting out a competency statement around communication. When we see these competency statements if we're looking at the Gen Ed core or we're looking at other places we find them in the system, we often see written and verbal. So that's what we're going to focus on, generating 2 statements. So the sample prompt down here is, design 2 communication competency statements for a module in my college, whatever your subject is, course. The module content is addressing a topic. So I really want to get down to a topic level. I would like one competency statement to address written communications, the other to address verbal. The statements must begin with actionable, observable, and measurable verbs. So that's getting it into the appropriate structure. Keep the statements simple and concise for student comprehension. I'm going to click over. So I'm going to click over to ChatGPT. And would someone put the link to that presentation in the chat? So if someone wants to copy off that prompt, they can just grab it and copy it off. So I'm going to click over and we're going to take a look at what it gave me. So you'll see my little prompt up here. And the reason I put in keep it simple and concise for student comprehension is because ChatGPT gets wordy. And if you use it often, you will notice that. So it can use real flowery terms and I wanted to keep it simple. So here it is. It's giving me these two example competency statements. I modified this for a nursing course and patient care plans. We oftentimes will interchange different disciplines. We try different topics. We try different activities so that when we design these prompts for you guys, we can touch on different disciplines. You just plug in your subject area and your topic. So it gave me a written communication competency. Develop. There you go. Actionable, observable, measurable, clear, concise, and accurate patient care plans that include appropriate nursing diagnoses, interventions, and expected outcomes using professional language and standardized documentation formats. My verbal. Effectively communicate patient care plans to healthcare team members using precise terminology, active listening, and appropriate tone to ensure clarity and collaboration in patient care. Students can clearly look at those and see what is expected of them and all different aspects of it. So it's written clearly, concisely, to the point. I can then move over to developing an assessment because I see exactly what I need. Prior to AI, this would have taken us a while. So in CBE, we develop competency statements consistently all the time. And we used to have to do lengthy workshops on developing competency statements prior to AI. So we can now collaborate with ChatGPT and get this done very quickly. And that gives us our rough draft to start from. Okay, I'm going to jump back. So we've got our competency statements. We've got those 2 communication competency statements, and we're going to look and see what we need to do next. Sarah, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Actually, I think this one's me.
Okay,
thanks,
sorry.
Jamie. No worries. And in the chat there, I shared just a short list of other durable skills if you want to consider playing with some others besides communication. So hopefully that you find that short list helpful. So looking at this example here of an output from ChatGPT, the prompt here was to draft competency statements for a communication course for higher ed workforce training. And connecting those to real world skills, again, using communication as our durable skill. And so here's just a few of what was returned. There were actually 10 different competency statements, but I want you to zero in on what we should be looking for and with a critical eye, evaluating what's coming back. Even with the great prompting that Jamie has demonstrated here, go back and evaluate to make sure that it is a clear, measurable, observable verb. Usually that's the one that trips it up. So go ahead and look at those more critically and evaluate. So looking at number 2, that one might be a little bit hard for us to be able to properly assess and develop a quality assessment to gather evidence of a student being able to express their thoughts. So I'm posing a revision to that one as the learner is applying professional communication strategies. So that's something I can see, a body of knowledge that they're applying by clearly articulating messages and providing constructive feedback in a workplace environment. So it gives me the context, it gives me the skills and gives me a verb that is measurable that I can gather that evidence on. So let's go ahead and now look at what are some of the best practices when you're using AI in developing your assessment. So that would be through to the next slide and then to the next one. Okay, so keep these best practices in mind as you're using your AI tools in developing your assessments. The first one, this is the best feature, the best reason for using AI is to ensure you have alignment with your competencies and your assessments. That's something that we struggle with. It takes a lot of time to go back and forth to ensure that the assessment experience, the expectations for collecting evidence are well aligned with those competencies that we've developed. So use the tool for that, and that's what it's really good at. The next one here is using your AI tool for your idea generation and not necessarily for that final product. So like we just talked about with the slide before, evaluate with your expertise what it is that it's returning to make sure that you're then developing the best product, what it is that you're after in this course experience. Always ensure academic integrity and our goal is to avoid over-reliance on the use of AI tools. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in our workshop here today. Next, always prioritize inclusivity and accessibility. Review the output in the assessments, especially to check for bias, readability, ensuring that all learners have access to those expectations, and it's very clear. And also, actually, that's all I want to say about that. And then the last one is continuously review and improve. So applying a continuous improvement mindset. And after you've administered the assessments, go back and review based on feedback from students, from your own experience and perhaps applying Rubric. So use that as part of the cycle in the development of assessments using your AI tools. So now I want to hand it back over to Jamie, and she's going to walk you through an example.
Just to tag on to what Erin was saying, so if you look at those two prompts that Erin and I did with those competency statements, you'll notice in the one that I plugged in there, I gave it a direction to include an actionable, observable, and measurable verb, and hers did not. And so she got a little different language on what she had returned to her, and one of those was not actionable and observable, so she would just retweak that again. But if you're new to working with this AI, you have to give it very explicit instructions. If you know, okay, I need this to begin with a verb that I need to be able to measure, then tell it that. It's just like you're collaborating if you had a student working with you and you're training them, right? You're training these tools. So be very explicit with what you are looking for to get out of there. And speaking of that, so we're going to go to the next piece here. So we've got our competency statements, and now we want to build an assessment off of that competency statement. So one of the great strengths of these AI tools is to help us in academia with alignment. And when I was mentioning before my meandering down the navigation path in my courses of building content before, my alignment would get out of sync often because, again, the shiny object went in front of us, particularly in like cyber courses when things are happening all the time and you do different things. And so what might happen is I may have a student learning outcome and all of a sudden we're doing something else that I didn't really plan on. So my content might be out of alignment, my assessment might be out of alignment, but these tools are super duper in helping you maintain alignment. So this is an example of using a competency to drive assessment design using that AI tool. Now, this example is I'm doing this out of the gate. So I'm developing this new competency, I'm developing this new assessment. But this alignment step can be done retroactively. You can go back. And all you need to do is if you're checking alignment on content that you have existing, then take your learning outcomes and drop that into the AI tool and then plug in the activities or assessments that you have students doing and ask the AI tool, is this an alignment? Is there something I can do to improve alignment? Is there something I have not considered? Because that's one of the things I love it for, because it's constantly giving me information and I think, oh, I didn't think about that. So alignment can be achieved before or after the fact. And that's one way we would challenge you to really kind of go look at the content that you currently have. Okay, so here we are, step 2. We have a competency statement and we want to have AI to assist us in designing an assessment for that competency statement. And so my prompt is gotten a little bit longer here. I will say my prompts are starting to get longer now. I've been using these tools for a little over a year and a half, and that's only because I've gotten used to how the tool works, and that just comes with time. And I would say to you, if you're looking at someone's prompts and you think, oh my gosh, I wouldn't even know to add that information in. I was there as well, and I would prompt it, and I still do this, as if I'm talking to someone sitting next to me. I might ask a very simple question or give it a very simple directive, and then whatever comes back, and then I go back to it with more information, and we're going back and forth just like I would with a colleague. So as this prompt, I've worked on it, chiseled it, and I just keep asking it in the AI until I get what I want. So here's our sample prompt. Develop a competency assessment and a rubric for the following written communication competency for the patient care module And I just left topic and subject in there. I find that if I leave these placeholders in my prompts, AI just ignores them. But I want them there so you can see it's a verbal, it's a visual cue for you to plug in your topic and your subject. So we're back to that patient care module in my college nursing course. So I pulled out the written communication and I fed it to the AI and I said, develop a clear, concise, and accurate patient care plans that include appropriate nursing diagnoses, interventions, and expected outcomes in professional language and standardized documentation formats. And that right there for your particular one, you may even leave out that. You may just start with the first one. Develop an assessment for this competency statement. See what it comes back with. Look at it, then start to drill down further in your question. The third one, ensure the assessment is authentic. That means it's got a real world feel to it, right? Application-based, students are doing something. It's measurable with clear expectations for demonstrating competency. I want students to know exactly what they need to know and be able to do. Include steps that require students to document the writing process. I want you to really think about this statement for a moment. So right now we're having all of these conversations about over-reliance on AI. Students sitting down, plugging things in, bringing things out, turning them in. What is one strategy for handling that? Having students document the process of their writing. What does that look like? That may be them turning into you their brainstorming ideas, turning into you the first iteration of their writing, you're providing feedback. Turning in their second iteration of their writing, you're providing feedback. The entire time, they're also documenting for you, this is what I'm thinking. This is why I'm thinking that. So you're really having them document the process. So we want an assessment that is measuring that competency. And if the AI suggests writing, I want it to also give me strategies to then turn around and give my students about how to document that process to control for over-reliance. Let's take a look at what we've got. Now, I fleshed this out in one big chat. So we're going to have to do some scrolling over here and take a look around. So let's scoot back up here. All right, so we've got, that is our very first go at it right there. All right, so competency assessment. So it comes back and it gives me, students will demonstrate their ability to create a comprehensive patient care plan that includes. I'm not going to go through all of this. I want you to simply see that it is addressing that standard or the competency statement that I put in there. So it's giving me a clinical scenario. Students will be provided with a realistic patient scenario. So just a tip here, if I am sitting down and I'm working on one of these assessments and it comes back and it says, okay, doesn't matter what discipline you're in, you're going to use a case study, you're going to use a scenario, I'm going to turn right around and say, okay, AI, provide me with a scenario, provide me with a case study. If you have students in your class that you want to give them options, a great thing to do is to have the AI to produce a couple of scenarios or a couple of case studies and say, okay, here are your options. You choose which one you want to do. Okay, so it's giving me what it's going to do here. It's describing that. Here's my assessment instructions that it produces for me. Okay, I told it to give me clear, explicit instructions that are easy to understand. It's giving me my expected outcomes. It's giving me the evidence, and that's what assessment is all about, right? The evidence to make sure students are learning what we intend for them to be learning. Document your writing process. Okay, we talked about this. This is what students, you can then include in your assignment so students aren't over-relying on AI. So here they're going to be instructed to do their initial brainstorming, mind mapping. Oh, that's really nice. So they're not just producing a text-based outline. Drafts and revisions. So this is when they need to come in and you're going to give feedback. Reflective journal. Have them write about their process of developing their work. Have them journal about it. Here's their submission requirement and their process documentation portfolio. So it's giving me some things that students are doing. All right, there's my rubric. It's produced. So it has then given me an assessment and a rubric. It's giving me a timeline and submission. If I wanted to do this over the course of 2 class periods, I would feed that into the AI. I would even say it's 2 90-minute class periods, or whatever your timeline is that you want this accomplished by. Authenticity and measurability. So it's giving me, all right, I asked for real world connection. Right, here we go. So it's giving me what that is. That is great to talk to your students about, so they understand why they are learning what they are learning. This is particularly effective when we are teaching durable skills, right? When we're teaching communication and collaboration and all of those different kinds of things, critical thinking. Because lots of times you think, we talk to students, we say, you're learning to think critically. What does that really mean? What does that mean to students in concrete terminology? So I get some really good feedback when I ask the AI, give me the authenticity so I can talk to students in that language. And like lots of times, it'll give me things I haven't thought of. Instructor feedback and remediations, giving me ideas on that. Okay, so there's my assessment. If I wanted to tweak it in any way, I would now go back and tweak it. If there's parts of it that I liked and parts of it I didn't, I might copy those out and then start to chat about the pieces that I really liked. Okay, now back to the backward design. I've decided what students need to know and be able to do, my competency statement. I have used AI to develop the assessment. I've got that going. I like what that's looking like, and the rubric. Now I have to figure out, okay, I know what students need to know, be able to do. I know how I'm going to assess it, what the evidence looks like, what learning materials are going to get them there. What activities are going to get them there? And so those are the activities that students do in your class, the videos they watch, the texts they read, the presentations they look at, the research they complete. All of that different kind of thing is your learning journey. So that's going to get you from that navigation of where you start to where it is that you want to end up. So I've put on here a prompt. Provide 5 concise strategies to align learning activities and materials with the assessment objectives. Now, I've done this all in one running chat because I just want this to be one continual story, okay? After a while, when you're using these tools, you can train it or put it into a folder even to keep that conversation going. But I found in my practice that it's really easy to keep this in one big long chat. Okay, so let's take a look and let it give me some strategies. So let's think. What are the strategies to find these different learning materials? I'm going to come right back up here. So here we go. 5 concise strategies to align learning activities to materials with assessment objectives. And this is great for instructional designers and faculty developers alike. So we're going to look at explicit outcome mapping. All right, so it's going to then talk about what it means by that. Authentic case-based learning. Authentic case-based learning takes place in every single discipline. It does not matter if you are teaching Gen Ed Core or you're teaching CTE. It is relevant, and AI can help you tease that out. Scaffold instruction with exemplars, showing them templates, guides. Embedded reflective practice, peer reflective journals, feedback sessions, formative assessments with timely feedback. So those are just some strategies that I can think of. This would be particularly effective if you're new to teaching and you didn't come down that traditional teaching road to arrive in the classroom. I did not. So it's very helpful for me to see lots of examples of what is meant by good strategies to align learning activities, right? So it's just giving me some things to think about. If I saw something on here that I like, so authentic based learning, case studies, scenarios, theoretical knowledge and practice, I may come up and I may say, okay, help me build a little simulation, AI. Help me build a little simulation where students are learning to do these patient reports. And so I can get some ideas here. All right, I'm going to go back. So it's given me some strategies. Now, what I want to do, it's time to get those learning materials found. And we want to focus on OERs as much as possible. So I've got a little prompt here that is an extension of this chat. And I want AI to efficiently help me find some learning materials. This is true if it's OER or if it's anywhere else out there. It will help you find them. And so my prompt is provide search links for 7 quality OER resources that I can use in the module. Mix the media modes to include text, presentations, videos, and or podcasts. I want it to find all the things and come back and give me some different ideas. This is my starting point, right? So if I think about, oh, I should have done, some other type of learning material, I can add that in the ongoing conversation. Provide the published date, a brief description, and a link to the resource. I love the idea of it going and finding it and bringing it back to me rather than me sitting back trying to just Google and search down the web on one thing at a time. One of the most effective little ways to do this search process that I've just recently discovered is this little format right here of site, and resource. And I'm going to explain that to you. I've also had telling the AI, list out the entire link. And let me just take you over there to show you the prompts. And we're going to go all the way down here to the bottom. And you're going to see this prompt right here. So it's come back. So 12 seconds. How long would that have taken me before AI? I couldn't have typed 3 words into Google in 12 seconds. So this is a really efficient way to do it. So what it's done, it's gone out and found resources for me. And I specified OERs. And so here's what I mean by listing out the link and this search tip. So what AI will do is it will go get links. So if I didn't tell it to list out the entire link, it's going to come back and give me words that are sometimes hyperlinked and sometimes not. It is not consistent in that process. So our team has figured out over time, ask for the link spelled out. So if it's not clickable, then I can just copy and paste it into the browser and run with it. This second piece of that site resource. So this link that is spelled out is going to this one resource. So it's going to OER Commons into courses into this one resource. Now, I'm going to be honest, about 60% success rate with those URLs. OERs are constantly moving. The platforms on their materials are moving around. That's true of the web in general. But that's linking to one. So many times that works perfectly for me. But what if I wanted to search the entire site of oercommons.org for nursing care plans guidelines? So I want to show you what I do with this. I'm going to take this right there and I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to jump up here and let me pull this down just a little bit so I can actually get to a blank window. And I'm just going to paste that in because I want you to see what we get on a return. So what it's going to do is it starts to search that entire site for that type of resource. So that's the difference. This one is going, this one is going to the direct link. Let me scroll down. This one is going to the direct link, and this one is going over the entire site. So that's a good little tip when you're developing out your learning materials if you want to expedite and make it more efficient. So what we have done in a matter of just a few moments is to generate a competency statement, to generate an aligned assessment, to generate an aligned rubric, and to link to aligned resources. And so those are all strategies that the AI has allowed me to do very quickly when traditionally would have taken me a lot of time.
Awesome. So now we don't want to stop there because, again, we can continuously improve our assessments and our course designs. We can actually use the AI tools to help break assessments. So in those that you already have that you're using in your courses, this is a perfect example. Also, just adopting this lens and evaluating anything that you're getting back through your AI tools to ensure that we're reducing over-reliance of the AI tools on our students and increasing their authentic student engagement in these assessments and assignments. So here are some ideas and strategies that you can incorporate into your assessment design that will help with that goal. First off, include any opportunities for personalization. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, but that is something that you want to emphasize and incorporate into your design. As Jamie described, have students incorporate a reflection or description of the processes that they followed. Include an oral component as something that is delivered through a recording or through a video. Have them follow sequential tasks, steps within the tasks, and have deliverables within each of those steps. That's a really good way for students to really then solidify their understanding of the discrete steps that take to complete a larger task. Have them require them to explain and justify the choices and the decisions that they made. That's also in that AI statement that Pari shared there. That's part of that effort. So take a look at that if you haven't taken a look at that. Have students make a choice and incorporate their themselves in displaying their evidence in different diverse formats. So that's really a great way to increase the student authentic demonstration. And then, of course, the rubric design, you can have that as part of your prompting, that you're wanting to reduce student over-reliance on the AI tools and increase their demonstration. And again, this is all in preparation for them to be able to effectively and efficiently use these tools in academia as well as in their workplace beyond academia. So I want to hand it back over to Pari, and she's going to summarize the ethical considerations.
Thanks, Erin. I feel like Stephanie can probably speak to all of these because she has been warning us about what could go wrong and how things could be outdated and all that kind of stuff. So all of us are very aware of these ethical considerations, but especially in the light of trying to build the learning journey using OER resources, I would say that a lot of these become even more important because, as Sarah mentioned earlier, right to start us off with, privacy and security is paramount. Whenever we are trying to scour all these resources, even through AI, to try to build these things, want to make sure we don't disclose our information, we don't disclose our students' information. Any kind of private information, let's keep it private. The other thing is whatever results we get, we want to evaluate them for fairness. We want to evaluate them for any kind of bias. We don't want to amplify any kind of biased voices that are coming out of these resources. If it's only one point of view, we want to make sure we go back and say, give me diverse points of view in this teaching material. And so students are getting instructions in a fair way. The third point is just like we are asking our students to disclose their AI use, it might be good to be transparent and explain what we have done. And so even in our syllabi, we can say, hey students, I'm asking you to disclose your AI use on your assessments, and just so you know, when I build this course, when I put these resources together, some of them were recommended by AI. So the more transparent we are, we teach students by example on how we want them to be transparent with us. The fourth, there's always the point about academic integrity and copyright compliance. And so this area is, as we all know, is murky right now. The only thing that has been sort of, we are not getting into policy, but the only thing that has come out is like anything you do with AI is not copyrighted. And a lot of times that's, or, whatever we are reusing, everything that we find in AI or that AI does for us, it's going to be a mix of everything that's out there. And so this area is murky, but it's good to keep in mind that we are, use AI is using materials that is already out there. It is not coming up with new material. And, we can't just pass off whatever AI is saying as our own, just like we don't want students to pass that off as their own. And so Creative Commons can come into play here. Just like all the people who are working in this are sharing documents saying, I use this syllabus statement, I use this disclosure statement. And so to try to keep that in mind. As Erin mentioned before, accessibility and inclusivity is good to keep in mind, because we don't want to generate assessments and or rubrics or any kind of materials which are only catered towards one sort of learner or one sort of learner preference. And we want to, especially if we are asking students to say, go play with AI tools, we want to make sure that they have access to a similar equivalent, category of tools, so to speak. And the final thing is, humans, these durable skills that we talked about, they are actually, I like the term human skills. And so human oversight, and whenever we are working with machines to do anything is super important. And so we should sort of demonstrate that to our own students, and work with them to kind of make them understand how we as humans should use this technology as a design accelerator, or as, to save time, but not really use it instead of our own thoughts and our own, work. And so those are all the things that we should keep in mind while we are working with this stuff with ourselves, to keep our work better, to do our work faster, and with our students to teach them also these considerations when they use it. So, and I will pass it to Sarah to wrap us up.
Yeah, and we've got a couple minutes, and it looks like if you haven't been paying attention to chat, we have some great tips. We have some great conversations going in chat. And for those of you that have been chiming in and that have used AI to help with some brainstorming and to help give you any of that development, are there tips or tricks or things that you found that maybe we didn't mention? That I know we've had some great shares in chat. Look, and I'm going to apologize if I get your name wrong. Laquetta? I think you had your hand up.
I apologize. I was trying to click the chat so I could actually see what was happening. I apologize.
All right, no problem. Yeah, we've got some great recommendations in chat. And some good questions as well. So a couple things that stood out to me for those of you that haven't been able to hop into chat is being able to being aware of so Stephanie was sharing, I think this is Stephanie because I'm have my mouse over the wrong way, but was sharing that sometimes, and Erin, I think you said you'd had experienced this, where sometimes you're trying to tweak a prompt or tweak the response that you get, and it goes off in a strange direction and you can't get it back to where you wanted to go. Like AI is taking you off into left field and it's taking you on a field trip you never wanted to be on. And so sometimes it's easier to just stop and start over, because and we've seen this point pop up several times. It is not a best practice, and I think you'd hear this from all of us, to take what AI gives you, copy it and paste it into your class and run with it, right? Because this is, as Pari said, a lot of this content, any of this content that you get out of there, is really just a remix of things that already existed. It's a way for you to think about things maybe differently. It gives you a starting point. That's not where you would end it. And you have to have the human element. Pari talked a little bit in our ethics slide just a minute ago about that human element. You have to have the human element. You have to have the human intelligence to go and to one of the points in the chat, you've got to go check those resources. You've got to make sure that it's what you want to build in your learning journey for your learner. Not everything is going to work out right. You have to go and take the time to do that. There was also a great question posed, and I see some chats back and forth about some concerns from some colleagues about whether using AI to help with lesson plans or other work is hypocritical, especially,
Okay.
or is it cheating? And I think that's a great question. We've seen some good chat back and forth, and I really love the response that I think it depends on, how are you using in that class? I mean, we talk about transparency all the time. If you're transparent with your students and saying, hey, I'm using it this way, and this is the way that you can use AI in this course, I think that's a completely different conversation. I also think you have to be really careful, again, that you're not picking up that content and thinking you can walk away with it. With our example, it is, you don't always get the right content, right? If you're looking at building competency statements and AI tells you that a competency statement is to express something, how do you measure that? That's not a good competency statement. Or students will understand something. Well, how do you measure understand? I don't know how you actually measure and assess that somebody understands something, right? And so it's that human element. And I think it's important that we keep those things in mind. AI is a tool, and you hear us talking about it as a tool. It is not a replacement for anything. It is a tool to help minimize the time to development. I personally use it as a brainstorming tool. I use AI a little bit differently. Jamie has these beautiful prompts that she uses. I'm the one that's going to use short little prompts, and I'm going to tweak it as I go. Like, okay, what did I get here? I didn't really like it. Try it again. Do this with this piece. Do this with this piece. So there's actually different ways to prompt too. So I really am appreciating the chat, and but do want to be also respectful of our time. So do take a chance to look at the chat. Is there anybody, and we've got a great conversation going in here. Any other tips before we wrap up? Okay. Well, we have some really cool news from us that I'm going to share with you. So I am going to put the link to our resource site, which is constantly updated. So this is our Bridging Minds and Machines, our artificial intelligence and teaching and learning that is consistently updated. We have some amazing resources in there. In addition, we also have the links to the recordings from all of our Tech Talk Tuesdays. So for those of you that maybe just joined us for the first time, don't miss the chance to go on to this site and watch our old Tech Talk Tuesdays to get caught up, or if there's something specific you're interested in. I will also put in here the link to register for our March Tech Talk Tuesday. So I'm going to pop that in here real quick. It will be March 11th. So go ahead and register. We're still going to send it out probably a week in advance, but if you want to join us for our March Tech Talk Tuesday, please do so. Now, this is our really cool news. This is breaking news that just happened yesterday. We have our own AI learning email. So you can get a hold of the whole team at ailearning@tbr.edu. So that is our new AI learning email, and you can get hold of the whole team. So if there's anything we can help you with, if you want to talk about a project, if you have questions about a tool, if you want to try things, if you want us to come and customize a training for your department or your institution, please reach out to us there. And again, I want to say thank you very much for taking time with us today. We always enjoy Tech Talk Tuesdays. We're super happy to be back. And we are looking forward to seeing you all again in March. Please take time to check out that resource site because we do keep it updated. And Marla always spotlights us in the Monday Minute newsletter. So when you get that, please make sure that you check out that Monday Minute newsletter. She has a link to the resource site in there as well. And you can actually also register for Tech Talk Tuesday on that resource site. So we hope that you enjoyed today's session. We hope that you picked up some things you might want to try for your course development. If you haven't tried AI, give it a chance. And share with us how you're using it. We are an AI collaborative learning group. So as much as we like to share what we learn, we also like to hear from you. So hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Thank you so much for taking time with us today, and I hope you enjoy your afternoon.